Hi, I'm Marty Cohn, and welcome to episode 1 of Rotary Cares, a monthly show that's going to answer all your questions about Rotary International and more. Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers that come together to make positive, lasting change in communities at home and abroad. Established over 110 years ago, Rotary now has more than 35,000 clubs all over the world. Rotary's motto is service above self, and Rotarians adhere to a 4-way test, which is an ethical guide for Rotarians to use not only in their personal lives, but also in their professional lives. The test has been translated into more than 100 languages, and Rotarians sometimes recite it at their club meetings. It goes something like this: of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? In Brattleboro, we actually have 2 Rotary clubs that meet. We have the Brattleboro Rotary Club that meets on Thursdays for lunch at the American Legion, and we have the Brattleboro Sunrise Club that meets for breakfast on Wednesdays at the American Legion. Our guests today are George Weir, who's president of the Brattleboro Rotary Club, and Michelle Pong, who's president of the Brattleboro Sunrise Rotary Club. Welcome, George. So, George, right off the bat, how long have you been involved in Rotary?
I've been in this club for 11 years. 11
years. All right, and why did you join?
The easiest answer, and I think it's the same for many of us, is I was invited to the first meeting by a fellow Dave Parker, a dear friend who's now passed on. I had a lot of respect and trust in Dave. So when I came to the meeting, I knew Rotary did good works in the world already, as most of us do. And I'd been involved in a lot of other organizations and efforts that do good works. But what struck me about Brattleboro Rotary Club when I came in was how welcoming they were and how much fun they were having at lunch. And so that was kind of a compelling reason for me to say, okay, I'll try this out. And Dave sponsored me, and that's how I became a member. It wasn't a hard decision for me at all. It was an easy one.
Great. Okay. So just some, when we talk about the Brattleboro Rotary Club, just some facts. When was the Brattleboro Rotary Club formed?
It was formed in 1950. And it was started and I should say that I don't think there's any members that were involved initially, but I think within the last few years, maybe Don Stockwell passed on, who was one of the founding members.
So we're coming up to 67 years of being in Brattleboro. And when we look at Brattleboro and we think about Rotary International, one of the things that Rotary does is it gets involved with global projects, notably dealing with clean water, sanitation, hygiene. How has the Brattleboro Rotary Club participated?
Well, that's a great question. And in 1997, a group of Rotarians had been, I think it was on a dental mission, into Central America, and they realized that dentistry wasn't the real problem. The real problem was waterborne disease. And so that started a conversation in 1997 within the club. And it led to, by 1999, Mara Williams was instrumental in securing a grant for $300,000, a district grant. And it was actually, we were working with the district, it's a little more complicated. We had to get an international grant, which we got, we had to have a club outside of the country. So Noroeste is a club in El Salvador. We partnered with them. We got a $300,000 grant, and that kicked off this project to build filters. It's turned out to be filters, but basically to provide clean water to families. And we partnered with some graduate students at Dartmouth, engineering students. They designed finally a very simple sand filter system that could be installed for as little as $150 for a family. And we worked in the poorest areas of Honduras. And that project it was a Brattleboro project, quickly outgrew our ability to administer that project. So it eventually morphed into an organization which is now a separate nonprofit called Pure Water for the World. And they have worked throughout Central America, and now have had a very major effort in Haiti, following the problems they've had with Haiti with weather. And so that's one of the things we've done that we're pretty proud of. But you know, that's 20 years ago, really. So we're on to other things.
But still, you know, little Brattleboro launched Pure Water for the World.
A major program.
So locally, you know, so that's international. That's the international part. But locally, Rotary's involved in many things. Give us some examples of what Rotary's involved in.
It's interesting you asked the question. If you were to, we've had people get up at meetings, we have a thing called Rotary Minute. Somebody has to get up and talk about things they care about, and they'll say, you know, I was just looking over how many projects we've done in the last 5 years, and the number's 32. So we are a very action-oriented club, and we do a lot of things within the community. That's a little like some clubs, which spend a lot of time raising money, which they send into international efforts. We tend to like to do things locally. We've done a lot of projects at the park, Memorial Park, and the most recent was we constructing this disc golf course with the Morning Club. That was a combined effort. We helped build the Kiwanis shelter. We worked on getting them snow guns. We worked on the snowmaking. We worked on the hockey rink, you know, the water park. All those things were from us. And then there's other efforts that we involved in which are not quite so major, but have a real impact, such as the overflow shelter meals that we do every year, which we feed people who are basically homeless and we wouldn't have food that evening if we didn't feed them. Painted the floor. We worked at the Girls and Boys Club, painting the floor after the flooding and fixing the floor after the flood associated with Irene. And so the list goes on and on. One of the most recent projects, and it's a fun project because we've started this Little House Library project, which began just within the last 6 weeks or so. We've already got these little libraries being constructed. You put them on your front lawn. You can put your books in. Somebody can come by, take those out, put some of theirs in. Another community member can come and take them all out and put some of theirs, ones they wanted to share in. So it's a terrific, small projects, big projects. That's how we operate. And of course, the big one is which is a real. The Christmas trees we know about, everybody's been by and seen our trees. And then the other one, that's gone on for decades. And another project that we have just had the 5-year commitment to the golf, through our golf tournament to the hospital. And that wrapped up this year, very successful. $119,000 raised for the hospital.
So actually the golf tournament is the club's biggest fundraiser.
It is our biggest.
And you know, generating money not only for the hospital but for other local organizations as well.
Well, we have a gift giving committee and within our club, and so we gave. I think the amount of money that came out every year from the tournament was $5,000 to the gift giving committee, which would be $25,000 over 5 years, and then the hospital got the balance. The gift giving committee will give gifts as little as $100 to some organization that makes a request, and there's usually probably 10 beneficiaries every year, something like that.
Wow.
My committee is very active.
That's fantastic. Now, the club is also involved in scholarships.
That's right.
Matter of fact, I think the club is probably one of the largest providers of scholarships.
That's a great story because this goes back for decades, and probably, I don't even know if it's 35 years, just many, many years. And the way that works is we obviously identified a need, which is kids going on for education after high school. And so we set up in order to have this thing really work, it became sensible to try to create an endowment through a separate foundation which would be a so-called 501c3, that is a charitable organization. That would allow people to make donations to this and then take a tax deduction on Schedule A, charitable donations. It also allowed us to not commingle funds with the Rotary Club funds, which is important. And so we have a little bit of a shortfall in the last year or two. Last year, I think we were able to do $13,500 in scholarships for, Marty, you know better than I think it's for 4 individuals?
Right.
That's right.
It was actually 16,000 because we also have the Jesse Cohn.
Oh, that's right. I was just going to get to
Jesse Cohn scholarship
right.
for a student at the Community College of Vermont. But clearly for decades now, over 30 years. Actually, I think it started in 1986. So we're talking a lot of years, of doing that. I want to go back to something that you said about your joining. Last question for you. What's the best thing for you about being a Rotarian?
There's no one thing, but I can give you a quick group, if that's okay. Am I allowed to give you? Okay. One is fellowship. You will work, for me, joining a club where everybody is really having a good time working together and stuff. So there's a lot of times you get involved with projects which may not be fun and you may not like the person next to you, but that's not the case at Rotary. We're all very close and very friendly. The other thing about it is the opportunity to sort of make a difference, to say, well, we started on a project, we started on a project and we identified an objective, and we accomplished it. And we accomplished it within a reasonable time period. And so if you're action-oriented, and most of us in the club are very action-oriented, you want to get things done. And I think that's one of the things that I like most about Rotary, is the ability to get stuff done.
Rotary in motion. George, thanks for taking the time to be on the show.
Thank you, Marty. I enjoyed it.
We'll be right back with our guest, Michelle Pong. But first, this brief message from Rotary International. Be right back.
We are this close.
We are this close to making history.
This close. Of wanting
to making history.
This close to changing the world.
This close.
We are this close. This close.
We are this close to making history.
We're this close to ending polio, to making sure no child suffers from this crippling disease ever again. All we need is you.
Hi, welcome back to episode 1 of Rotary Cares, a monthly show that answers the question, what the heck is Rotary International? Our guest is Michelle Pong, president of the Brattleboro Sunrise Rotary Club. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Marty.
All right, so we just heard from George and the Brattleboro Rotary Club. How long have you been involved in Rotary?
I believe it's around 20 years.
No way.
Yes.
20. What did you start when you were?
I was 5.
Okay, very good.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Sounds like it passes the 4-way test.
I feel comfortable with that. This is actually my second club. I transferred up here from Connecticut about 12 years ago, I think.
Wow, 2 clubs. And now you're president, and were you president at the other club too?
I was. This is my second stint.
A 2-timer, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
So let me ask you, why did you join Rotary?
I think I joined Rotary for the same reason a lot of people do. It was a business move. It was a function of my job. I was invited in by somebody else in the industry, and it was a chance to network and to socialize with peers in the professional community in which I worked, which was really sort of just the stepping stone. I think that after joining the club and really understanding the impact that Rotary had not only locally but globally, it became more a way of my life. And I can't really imagine not being part of the good work that's being done all the time through Rotary and Rotary International.
Terrific. Now, just we learned that Brattleboro Rotary Club started in 1950. When did the Sunrise Rotary start?
Well, the Sunrise Rotary actually started in 1995, which was founded by members of the Noon Club. And I'm not sure, but I think that it was a more convenient time, and there was no other reason, but that people could meet in the morning and be off to work by 8:30. So we're early risers, and that's how we started. And we actually do have some founding members still in our club.
That's fantastic. Well, what's interesting also is when you add the number of members in your club and the number of members in the Brattleboro Rotary Club, there were probably about 120 members.
At least, yes.
In Brattleboro. So as we said, Rotary International involved in global projects. Another big project for Rotary International is Polio Plus. Can you tell us about that?
I absolutely can.
Okay.
Well, actually, the first initiative, I think, in the mission to eradicate polio occurred around 1979 in the Philippines, where it became the mission of Rotary International to eradicate polio from that country. From there, it grew exponentially to a worldwide project, and now it is in 122 countries, I believe, and the program has immunized about 2.5 billion children and has reduced the cases of polio by 99.9%.
Wow.
And Polio Plus was founded in order to further those efforts. We do have global partners, including the World Health Organization and the United Nations. And now there's a big push to really try to get that number up to 100%. And we are getting very, very close. So the efforts locally really center on raising money. However, I was lucky enough many years ago to take part in a vaccination clinic while I was in India with the Rotary. And to actually witness parents bringing their children from miles away and sometimes walking was a very moving and inspiring experience, just to see the gratitude on the faces of families knowing that their children wouldn't suffer the consequences of the horrible disease and the ramifications that it has throughout a lifetime.
Now, so what's fantastic about that is here you are in Brattleboro or in Connecticut, and you're able to have an impact internationally. Fantastic. But we're in Brattleboro. What about locally? What kind of projects does the Sunrise Club do here in the Brattleboro area?
The Sunrise Club has decided to focus on nutrition issues and food scarcity, especially where it concerns children. So a number of years ago, we actually piloted a program to fill in a gap during school vacations. So although there is a great resource for summer lunch programs for children out of school, there wasn't a lot of resources for Christmas vacation and spring break. So the Sunrise Rotary began by actually getting together in the morning, making sandwiches and delivering them to communities where there could be a centralized location that children could have easy access to a healthy, nutritious lunch. And now, in a wonderful turn of events, a lot of these communities have banded together to really try to run this program on their own, and it's really become a sustaining program. We did get some financial help, and I think we still do, from the Noon Club. And by pooling those resources, we've been actually able to stretch that out into hundreds of meals for kids during a 1-week vacation time span. So that's a really great thing to see, is that these communities have taken ownership of a program. And if we were to go away tomorrow, I do believe that those programs would continue. We've also done a lot of other stuff with food concerning the overflow shelter. We cook for that. And it seems like most of our fundraising efforts and support do roll around food. And we do a lot of cooking for like the BMH fundraisers, and we do cooking at the Groundworks fundraiser. So it's another way that we can reach out and help our other partners in community efforts here in Brattleboro.
Now, the Noon Club has the golf tournament. That's its biggest fundraiser. What's the biggest fundraiser for the Sunrise Club?
Our biggest fundraiser is the 3-on-3 basketball tournament, which is coming up in March. It is a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. And we do have a lot of local sponsors that roll into that. We usually have, don't quote me, around 30-something teams that compete in different age brackets. And that raises money specifically for our scholarship program, which we typically give out between $10,000 and $12,000 a year to local students. We also, right now, are running a dinner raffle, which is probably our second biggest fundraiser a year. And that funding usually goes to not only to help with the scholarships if we're running short on our goals for the year, but also to fund our other initiatives, which is really just trying to fill gaps in the community. For example, we like to get our hands dirty, and we went and built a few years ago the playscape over at the Morningside Shelter. And we worked with the Noon Club very closely to get the disc golf course up at Brattleboro Memorial Park. And those initiatives are just as important, we believe, and we will continue to fill in gaps as they come and present themselves to us.
You know, between the two clubs, I mean, and then on the scholarship front, we're talking about over $30,000 a year. Incredible. So give me the elevator pitch for why should someone join. I'm going to say Rotary. I'm not going to be specific in terms of Sunrise versus but why do you think someone should join Rotary?
I think that the motivation for joining Rotary should be that you are part of this community. And if you live here or you work here, you are a cog in an important wheel that makes this community function. And if you want to give back to that and be part of it, a real part of it that makes a difference, Rotary is a great outlet to do that. And not only is it a way that you can support other organizations and other functions in your community, but it's also a way to have fun. And everybody leaves Rotary with new friendships. In the morning, you're awake and you're happy, and you get fed. There's food. There's always food at Rotary. But it's not only the fellowship, but it's what you accomplish as you're doing that. And I think that's an important motivation for actually stepping through the door and seeing what Rotary's all about.
Last question. What is the best thing for you about being a Rotarian? So you got all those years, think about it. What's the best thing?
The best thing about being a Rotarian, it's about being part of something that's bigger than myself. And it's about my efforts actually going toward creating a goal that is attainable and that makes a difference. And that's important to me.
And what do you think, what would be the most fun thing? Can you think, what's the most fun thing that as a Rotarian?
As a Rotarian?
Yeah.
You know, morning breakfasts are incredibly fun. Our club is just waking up, and of course we're catching everybody on their second cup of coffee and hearing about everybody's day-to-day life and everybody's struggles. Everybody's going through the same stuff as everybody else. And at Rotary, we don't have to put on that professional face all of the time. We can sit and share over breakfast and pancakes and eggs about the day-to-day struggles of work, of family life, and the day-to-day happiness that we all experience. And to me, that is really important, and that is the funnest part of my week.
Well, the funnest part of my week is meeting people like you. So I want to thank you for being on episode 1 of Rotary Cares.
I am so happy that you had me. Thanks,
Okay.
Marty.
So I'd like to thank our guests, Michelle Pong and George Weir. And a shout out to Sunrise Rotarian Kevin Yeager, who's doing all the magic behind the camera. I'd also like to thank BCTV and especially Roland Boyden for helping bring this show to you. If you have any questions, concerns, or ideas for future topics, you can send them to info@BrattleboroRotaryClub.org. info@BrattleboroRotaryClub.org. All those come to me. I'll read every one of them. I'm Marty Cohn. Thanks for watching.